child in Valorant has heard the tale before about the cursed mummy boy who felt his heart no more. So sad and lorn, the helpless lad, Amumu was his name. He ventured out to find a friend and learn about his bane. For many years, young Amumu traveled through the lands, determined to make friends if only they would understand. But even when Amumu stood upon the ledge of home, his hope would disappoint him and he would remain alone. But then the curse began to whisper in his ear and would confirm what was Amumu's biggest fear. It pledged that never shall someone become his friend. It pledged that he shall be alone until his end. But sorrow and despair became too much to bear.
And welcome everybody to another series here in Group B of the Rivalry Captain's Draft here between Team Platodig and Team Sator. As the curse of the 1-1 continues, we'll see if that ends up changing tonight at all. I am joined, of course, by Xenolot. How's it going, my dude?
Good evening, it's good and you?
Yeah, not doing too bad at all as we're getting into picks and bans here. Some ADC focus coming out straight away. Obviously, the Tristana, which can also be flexed. Not too surprised to see that. And then the Camille being banned away, obviously, against Bucko, who had a monster performance on it in this last series. Did carry his team to victory with that pick. Meanwhile, the Garen banned away against Hong Fudge. Annihilation's Kai'Sa also taken away.
Yeah, these are super expected pick and bans. Maybe the Tristana is the only thing that's a little bit unexpected. It's only been played, I think, once by Annihilation and once also by Sator Dad. So not a super common ban, or not super expected. And my Subsaki, I don't think has played it in the mid lane either. But other than that, the Senna super strong ADC, Bucko, as you said, had a great game on the Camille, and then the Kai'Sa for Annihilation, the Garen for Hong Fudge, and Udyr just being one of the best junglers in the game. All regular bans.
Yep, for sure. I do see the Yi being hovered and locked in, which is very unusual. This could be a placeholder. We'll see if anyone ends up letting us know about that. As I'm just trying to fix some audio here. Just bear with me, guys. Oh, thank you, Andy, for the raid. Very nice. So, in response, they have locked in the Rammus here. And
Waiting for word on what that Master Yi is. Oh, it's Viego. The Master Yi is Viego.
Yeah, so that has been confirmed. The Yi is Viego. So definitely putting a lot of priority on this Viego pick, which has kind of had mixed performances so far. We have seen people who haven't necessarily been able to kind of pull out the full power of that champion. Feels like he needs to snowball a little bit to be relevant. So we'll see if they can make that work. It could also technically be a flex, not just a jungle pick. You could see it go to top lane perhaps. Meanwhile, the Vayne has been picked in response to the Jhin and the Rammus. So Annihilation definitely feeling confident, as Vayne in theory could get punished a little bit here by the Jhin in lane. They are hovering a support to go alongside it.
Yeah, the Vayne pick with the Viego, two kind of super scaling picks on hit picks. The Rammus actually is really good into both of them already. So it's actually just a really good early pickup for Bloody Valentine. I'm assuming it is going into the jungle and not some top lane pick. But then we see the Poppy in the top lane, which is blinded on the side of Bucko. Which is really interesting considering that could be punished quite heavily. We'll wait to see.
So I'm just thinking about Hong Fudge's like regular champion pool. He usually plays things like, when Garen is banned, you're looking at things like Yorick, things like Shen.
I can tell you what he has played, which is 2 games of Ornn, Shen, and then Urgot.
Yeah. So even the Urgot, right, it's not necessarily like the biggest punish to Poppy, because she can interrupt his gap closer and kind of just walk away and doesn't have to necessarily interact with that lane. So it doesn't feel like the champion pool necessarily punishes the Poppy in any major way so far. But
right, especially with the Camille off the table, it's easy to think that because Poppy can block your dash or your gap closer in some way that she automatically wins the lane, but that's not necessarily true. You want to take short, long range trades with the Poppy. If she can't get her Q off on you, she realistically has no damage. She wants to get the Q off on the tank, on what should hopefully be a tank player. But we do see the Cassin, the Ornn, and then the Rise and the Anivia ban. So very directed bans at the mid lane, and just taking away the Ornn from Hung Fudge just so he doesn't have a safe tank top laner to go.
Yep. And just let you know, guys, predictions are up there in chat if you want to get in on that. But yeah, so far, a lot of beefy boys here picked on the side of Team Sator with the Shen lock in there. So you could see the popular Shen maybe flex around into support. We'll see what they end up deciding to do with that.
It's interesting that they took away the Kassadin, considering they actually want like a hyper scaling mid on the side of Sator Lad's team in the mid lane. As right now they just don't have the late game damage. They have a lot of tankiness, and Jin will provide some, but he doesn't have a very easy time dealing damage to a beefy front line.
Yeah.
We see the Twisted Fate in the air got picked up by Platodig's team.
Yep.
Which, with the Rise pick, the Twisted Fate coming in is expected, as the Rise just counters the Twisted Fate pretty hard. We see the expected Urgot as well going in the top lane.
Yeah, and then Diana rounding out the composition here. So, bit of kind of backline dive here between Diana, Poppy, Shen. You kind of have that sort of angle going for them here. Definitely kind of maybe lacking a bit of tank killing on their side. But then you're realistically your only real tank there is the Alistair. The Urgot is, I guess, like if you snowball in the head, he'll get those items that make him like a pseudo tank, right? Like the Sterix and the Sterix Gauge and the likes. But we'll see if they can actually kind of make that work. Meanwhile, we're just waiting for Cleanhouse to jump back in so we can get back into Champ Select, because as we said, the Yi hover was in fact a Viego pick.
One of the things about Platodig's team though is that if it falls behind and Sator Lad's team gets ahead, they will just immediately become too tanky for Platodig's team to kill. As yes, they have the tank killers, or the potential tank killers on that of Viego and Vayne, but if it gets to a point where Rammus can just taunt them and they die before they can do anything, before they can do their damage, it becomes really scary for the side of Platodig, as the triple tank, triple frontline setup can really just run over them, as well as the Diana can just get out of control.
Yeah, we'll see if Annihilation can use that Vayne pick effectively to shred through these tanks, or if he's just gonna get dove upon. Just trying to take. So, like, what overall, like, which kind of comp are you kind of favoring more here?
I think I like Sator Lad's team a lot more in terms of ease of execution.
Yeah,
it's a lot easier to pull off. The Diana, the Rammus can both go in really easily, and then the Xenolot can come out on top of it. Very easy to execute. They can immediately lock down one person. The Viego or the Twisted Fate or even the Urgot walk up just that little bit too early, then they can get run down very easily. It's very scary for any individual on the side of Platodig's team.
Yeah.
But and then the TF ult, I think, will be the big difference maker. If Xfrenzy can make good use of it and get good roams and good ganks off. But he has to be very conscious that Platodig is there, but he also has to be very wary of the Rammus and the Shen suddenly showing up and countering the global with their own ease of access in the map, and the Stand United coming in from Shen.
Yeah, makes sense. So
yeah,
Grant, both teams locked in there, as we're going to get into game 1 of Group B, as we await with bated breath to see who takes first blood in the series and then inevitably drops game 2. But with that said, guys, we'll go to a short break as we're going to spectator delay, and we'll be back to you guys shortly. and we are into game 1 between Team Platodig and Team Sator here in Group B. Just checking, Xeno, what time are you at there?
I am at 20, 21, 2, 3.
Grand, yeah. That's not too far off. We'll work with that. And as we go into a pause, as is absolute tradition here in Irish League of Legends. But yeah, just taking a quick look overview of how these teams are starting off. Kind of see Team Satyrs kind of all balled up here in the mid lane, perhaps looking for the level 1 invade. Meanwhile, kind of Annihilation still AFK in the base, so not going to have the full 5-man spread available here to Team Platodig.
Yeah, and just looking at the keystones and summoner spells, most interesting has to be the Electrocute Ignite on that of X Frenzy on the Twisted Fate. It's a very aggressive one. Maybe he needs the Electrocute to survive in the early lane. But we normally see the Summoner Spellbook on that of the Twisted Fate as Sator team looking for either the counter invade. But I can't see that coming out unless the Viego is expected to do something in the early.
Yeah, like neither team has like the best level 1 unless Book goes skilling the Shen taunt first. We are going to get spotted here by X Frenzy though, so nothing should end up happening. They're just going to get that ward there onto the red buff and just walk away.
Yeah, just figuring out where Platodig is starting and hoping to play around it, but they did actually counter invade the red side, and Bucko and my Subsaki are heading up in that direction.
Yeah, X Frenzy also hovering here. Seeing if the collapse does come out, Bucko is going to just barely dash over the wall. Takes a lot of damage for his troubles, and it's going to make it much harder to contest this red now. He's on half HP.
But
Subsaki is here.
Subsaki. He did start the taunt, but I think it's still on cooldown. Nope, it's back up. Oh, but he missed it.
Ends up
Hunk Fudge going back in.
Yeah, ends up getting the flip onto Bloody Valentine, who has to back off. Ignite used on Platodig. They're going to keep going on to Subsaki here. A lot of flashes burnt. First blood going to the Viego, which is exactly what Team Platodig would love to see, getting this early snowball here onto the Viego, and they're still going.
Yeah, just completely coin flipping the level 1.
Yeah, full red buff does go to Platodig, but ends up getting killed by Bloody Valentine.
My Subsaki is back alive. X turns he got the level 2.
Yeah. So
that was something.
Yeah, just trying to keep track of what happened there. So ultimately, Platodig got the first blood, but ends up dying on the enemy red buff. So we'll have his own clear kind of delay here. It's going to have to start lead shifts in the bot lane. Does already have level 2 though, whereas because he had actually gotten the smite off on the red buff himself. So it's actually Bloody Valentine that has the big XP disadvantage. It's having to go back to his Raptors here, level 1, and is going to have actually an extremely delayed start here on this round pick.
Yeah, so Platodig did actually end up getting the Bloody Valentine's red buff, so he got the level 2. He died for it, but it does set what is already a really poor clear on that of Rammus even further back. Meanwhile, we see a lot of trading in the mid lane.
Yeah, X Frenzy having to need to play a little more respectfully into Subsaki, who's not afraid to trade aggressively. If you can get that all in.
We see the corrupting bot doing its work for that of X Frenzy, and there is no sums on that of either mid laner. They're almost identically timed since they used them both in the red buff fight.
Yep.
But we see Platodig roaming up to actually try and contest the top scuttle for Bloody Valentine, which just sets the clear back Platodig even further. This is really, I'd say, interesting jungle pathing from both sides, as they both just seem to be
not
even thinking about what's good for them, but just trying to deny stuff from the opposing jungler, but we see a pick in the bot lane.
Yeah, Monarch Fowl getting stunned up and is going to get just cut down by Annihilation here on the Vayne. Meanwhile, to contest here on the bot Scuttle, they will end up getting chased away. Sator, in a really rough position, is going to have to flash, but ends up getting the gold card. Does just barely walk away from the wild cards and escapes with his life, but no flash here on the Jhin here in bot lane. It's going to make life very scary for him against this Alistar. Oh, Annihilation's going to flash in though. Gets that kill onto Sator Dad.
Yeah, Monarch Fowl was just stowing the rotation. My Subsucky didn't even consider roaming down. So Annihilation Clean has just killed Monarch Fowl because he doesn't have the resistances yet to survive the combo from Annihilation or Clean as. And again, just a messy scrap for over nothing, and caused 2 deaths actually for the side of Sator Dad, as even him roaming up for the scuttle was still, and dying later was a result of the fight for the scuttle, as he got chunked out so hard.
Yep.
But I don't know why they stayed on the scuttle. Meanwhile, I see more fighting in the top lane.
Yep. Just more trades from the Urgot onto the Shen. Boko not having a fun time here whatsoever. Does still have another pot to keep him ticking, so isn't too worried for the moment. But yeah, 2-0 here on the Vayne. Nalish is going to be very happy with how things have worked out for him so far. Oh, nice dash out from Bucko to avoid getting grabbed. And yeah, Director Camera really loves top lane, it seems like.
Yeah, Bucko is doing a good job of actually, he's ahead in CS with the wave being bigger on that of Hung Fudge's side. So for him to be ahead or even in this lane where Hung Fudge is kind of on the expected to go ahead on that of the Urgot, as he can trade, but Bucko using good use of his taunt and the Twilight Shroud to stay healthy in the lane. But yeah, the Sator Lads team is quite far behind. You know what we see a trade in the bot lane.
A lot of damage onto Annihilation. It gets punished against the wall by Monarch Fowl, so maybe a bit over aggressive in their trade there. And
yeah, we see what happens.
Still have to play pretty respectfully though.
We see what happens to a lot of what happens in a lot of poppy lanes, where you kind of almost forget how to play against her, where you start to walk up to walls. Meanwhile, there's a fight in the top lane.
Oh, the last tick of the Urgot ulti just not enough to get him over the line, and does end up going down with his flash blown. Does have TP to get back to lane, so shouldn't miss out on too much of this lane, on this wave that is building up on top. But nice gank timing there by Kerry. Does end up saving, by Dan, I should say. So
yeah, we see a good roam timing from Subsucky. Hung Fudge is playing way too aggressive. He had boarded the tri-bush, but just didn't have any in the river. We see the control work down there in the top side of the river for for Sator Lads team, but nothing was in the river to protect Hung Fudge, so his wave was just in a really poor position. And this time X Frenzy, even with the Destiny, was slow on the rotation, and my Subsucky just was able to get up top lane and didn't even lose that much from his own lane. And yeah, so you know, the bot lane trading back and forth, but the longer this goes on, and as I was saying earlier, the trade from the Poppy and the Jhin, you kind of just forget what Poppy does and how strong she can be, especially if she gets her stun off on you. And in this case, with the Jhin route and the anti-dash, I can't remember what it's called on that of Poppy against the Vayne. Annihilation, if he gets caught out, we see what happens just from the Jhin and Poppy, where he just gets chunked to 60-70%. And then when they start to group up, you'll see that can stack with the Rammus taunt, the Shen taunt, and then the damage from the Diana. Annihilation, he took the cleanse, but honestly he might even need more than that to survive some of these fights where he could get picked off in.
Yep. So taking a quick overlook here of the map. You can see Platodig and Clean Naz are getting deep vision here into the enemy bot jungle, as they're looking to get themselves priority over this dragon spawning in the next few seconds. Although it looks like Platodig is just going to reset. Maybe just times aren't quite right for them at the moment. Although they do have priority in both mid lane and bot lane, so you could see Xfrenzy start to roam down here. But it would force Subsuki to miss the way, but they're choosing just not to engage right now. It seems like instead Platodig is gonna just recall in the spot brush.
Yeah, I don't think they saw the control ward that's on the dragon pit. I think it's just hidden from out of view as if you walk just straight down the river. But I'm unsure what Sator, Monarch, and Bloody Valentine were doing there. They just kind of walked into the river, stood still, and walked back out again. They knew the Drake wasn't started, so maybe they're just trying to catch Platodig doing something. The Scuttler wasn't up either, so I was kind of unsure what the three of them were doing there. They just kind of seemed like they needed to do something.
Yeah, so Xfrenzy is clearing out that ward in the dragon pit at the moment. So I'm hovering down towards bot line, so possibly threatening the play of a TF ulti. But for now, it's just going to clean up, hoover up the CS, and not an awful lot of action early on into the game outside of the top lane trade and the early shenanigans around that red buff. So far, lanes staying relatively even. There's a bit of a CS lead here for Hong Fudge and for Annihilation, respectively. Also for Xfrenzy, surprisingly enough, has been managing to keep up in the CS department. Obviously, partly due to Subsuki having that earlier roam.
Oh, but all in from Subsuki just instantly bursting Xfrenzy.
Yeah, nice engage. That's the kind of like potential that Diana can bring in the lane. You know, you can all in punish the TF and then nice roam from Monarch Fel to get the follow-up pin into the wall and secure themselves a kill. So nicely played.
Yeah,
and they will get themselves a dragon.
Yeah, we saw Xfrenzy go down into the river and he cleared that control ward as he stated on the dragon pit, but he didn't actually get any of his own vision on the map. He actually had control wards, I think, and his trinket wards, so he had the time and he was there for the warding, but he didn't place any of it down, and it lets Sator and Monarch meanwhile gank in the top lane.
Ooh, nicely done by Hong Fudge. Gets themselves the ulti kill there. Clean as looking for the engage here, but looked like he's mostly just trading at the moment. But nice punish there from Viego and Urgot up in the top lane. Definitely something that has always been traditionally good to do in League of Legends is attack the global. Oh, nice flash. Knock up by Clean as though is going to get ultied away by the Poppy. But Sator Dad is just going down slowly here to Xfrenzy. Does fall in the end. Flash out by Monarch Fel, just barely saves his life.
Xfrenzy did not get the second gold card. I think it was blue card he drew on Monarch Fel as he flashed away. But if he had gotten it, Monarch would more than likely be dead. He would have been stunned under the turret from the flash. But I think they were healthy enough to slightly dive it. But we see Xfrenzy finally using the Destiny to get the pressure in the bot lane. But we've seen a lot of ganks, but almost none of them have been from either jungler. Platodig did gank the Hung Fudge up in the top lane there, but I think it was actually pretty much a guaranteed solo kill for that of Hung Fudge, considering he had gotten the toss up and the Q out on Bucko.
Yeah, the Viego doesn't necessarily have to get kills. Like, he's happy enough to also power farm, right? Because he wants to hit spikes unless there's kills that can be set up for him. But right now, they're kind of pinging here in River. There's a lot of vision for the side of Team Sator, though, so they should see them walking over it. And looks like they're trying to collapse the mid lane here. Xfrenzy not long for this world as he gets dove upon once again by the Poppy and the Diana. And cleaned up there by Sator Dad, who's going to be happy Jin with the one-shot kill.
Yeah, we see once again Xfrenzy just being punished for his lack of flash and lack of vision in the bot side of the map. Meanwhile, Bloody Valentine and my Subsuki are taking this Rift Herald, but the Bloody Valentine will lose his bot side jungle for it, They're dedicating 3 people to this, but they don't really need to. It's not being contested. It's past 14 minutes, so the
Yeah.
plates are all down. So it is slow for Valentine to do a large objective like Drake or Herald by himself, but if he has nothing to do, considering he lost his bot side, then he really shouldn't be dedicating 3 people to it, as Bucko and my Subsuki would have been losing CS and experience in their respective lanes.
Yeah, we see Blue Valentine has been trying to look for some for himself up in Platodig's top jungle, but was spotted out by Hong Fudge and just chased off. X Frenzy though could be getting ganked here once again. Is
Yeah,
barely
still
trying to
no
get out.
flash.
No flash. Subsuki
But
doesn't have mana, but
Subsuki is
and Platodig trying to help his mid laner, but will also get caught out here by the ulting Chen. So nice turnaround here from Team Sator. They're continuing to kind of make these plays. They are down a bit in gold, but they haven't been afraid to kind of fight back and make punishes where they can see it. They are going to get themselves this first blood turret here in the mid lane, get themselves a bit of that gold back. So in spite of Platodig having a very sizable lead here in the jungle over Blue Valentine, definitely not still showing signs of life over there.
Yeah, there's been just small gold advantages generated in each of the lane, or in most of the lanes, as I think are almost all from just each team getting 1 or 2 plates on their respective lane opponents. The Annihilation and Cleanaz just got, I think it was just the 1 plate off, but we see.
Oh, nice denial by Monarch Foul. Stops Cleanaz getting on top of Sator Dad. And the TPs are coming in. And the TF ulti is absolute pandemonium down here. Monarch Fowl is eventually just going to go down, though, as there's just more globals available on the side of Team Platodig to make the punishes. Trade ends up going their way, but yeah, and it looks like they're going to try to translate that now into the Baron. Subsuki has just gone in, has chunked an awful lot of health onto multiple members. Does go down, though, as Annihilation also gets picked off here. Bloody Valentine trying to do his best 1v3, but just does not have the damage to get through. And meanwhile, Hong Fudge is just happy enough to kind of tank up against the Jin, and there's not enough threat at the moment. They will secure themselves the second dragon of the game.
Yeah, we see some questionable decision making as my Bloody Valentine. As first, my Subsuki went in 1v3 almost, and he did get a big ult off. Meanwhile, we see a pause.
Yeah, fight was definitely very chaotic from all ends. It's very elongated and definitely kind of very segmented, as it were. The gold basically essentially funneled here into the TF and to the Viego, which they'll be very happy about. You can see at the moment that Platodig nearly has a 1k gold lead himself in the jungle, and nearly 1.4k gold lead here for the TF. So in spite of Subsuki getting a nice chunk of damage off, it ultimately didn't really have the kind of big team fight impact that you would like. And yeah, definitely not the greatest fight there for Team Sator. So just so good.
We saw them get everything they wanted, where Bloody Valentine was in on 3 of them. He was surviving a while, and my Subsuki got on 2 of them, including Annihilation. It just didn't happen all together. They went in literally just 1 by 1, and they seemed to be thinking, "Oh, this is what I want to do in a team fight." But there was no team on either side for anyone of Sator lads. And we saw what was actually a really interesting reaction in that Bucko got condemned as he taunted on Annihilation, but the channel still went through and he was actually able to auto as Annihilation condemned him. So Bucko actually killed Annihilation but got condemned back as it happened, which is just happened on the bottom of the screen as well, which is an odd interaction. But that all started with Monarch Fowl getting a good denial on that of Cleanaz as he tried to Hex Flash Headbutt Pulverize in, but just over dedicating and going too far in while Bucko was still TPing in to the bot lane, and all of it spiraled out of control from there, and we see the Drake going over to Platodig because of it.
Yeah, so taking stock here across the board, that's one dragon apiece. On the map, it is the Infernal Soul that is going to be available if either team can get enough dragons towards that. And right now, it definitely feels like Team Platodig, with a nearly 4k gold lead, definitely have the upper hand going into the mid game. You can see X Frenzy's pushing at this mid wave. There's really only this. If they can get this mid outer tower, it's definitely going to give them a lot of control over the map, especially with that TF ulti, who can just look to make plays pretty much anywhere he damn well pleases. Especially combined when he has the Everfrost to kind of set up, have that CC combo going for him. And meanwhile, the Vayne also just scaling very nicely, right? Like, has the CS lead, has a couple of extra kills in her pocket, is working towards the Rageblade second item, so is going to be absolutely tearing through tanks if she's ever given space. So they're going to be in a very happy position as we come out of the pause. Let's see what Team Sator have in response here.
Yeah, in regards to Vayne scaling, I think it's not so much getting the items right now, but actually just surviving the team fights. As I said earlier, I think Annihilation will have a really big problem just not getting jumped on by someone. Every one of Sator Lad's team, even the Jin, has a decent form of CC and can easily lock down the Vayne. So unless Annihilation makes really good use of the cleanse and has really great positioning, it's really on him to not mess up and not get caught by anyone on this by Sator Lad's team.
True.
We do see Annihilation and Clean as rotating to the top side in anticipation for what I assume to be the second Herald. I don't have the objective timers, so I'm not actually sure if that'll be up in time.
It is not going to be up in time. So, because the last Herald was taken very late, so second Herald not going to be available for either team. Meanwhile, it looks like they're mostly just positioning to get the shove here onto top lane and give X Frenzy a bit of space to push in mid. And they are just going to walk away from the city because they don't need to commit to a fight here. They've already kind of gotten what they wanted. More chip damage here in mid lane. Meanwhile, Hung Fudge getting engaged on here by Sator and Monarch Fell is not really under any threat though. There's not an awful lot of kill pressure here just yet. Does have that Gore Drinker and the Ninja Tabbies to kind of just sustain through the fights. And they'll end up looking like they're going to rotate to mid to try to see if they can hold on to their mid turret.
Yeah, the rotation by Platodig's team is actually good because meanwhile we see gank in the mid.
Yeah, flash engagement from Monarch Fell doesn't quite get the full stun. Annihilation is still going to go down to that burst from Diana though, as Cleanaz also is going to get chased down. Double kill going over to Substucky here on the Diana. I'm definitely making these engages work for them. They're going to try to get themselves a bit of pressure here into the mid lane. Don't know if they have enough time to take down the full turret. Actually, they do, because they've given plenty of space here by Team Platodig. So they're going to secure themselves the tier 2 very early on into the game. Hung Fudge didn't have any TP to join, so ended up just trading the bot outer himself for that play. Gold's still relatively the same, but again, we're kind of seeing Team Sator make the plays, trying to keep themselves relevant within the game.
Yeah, we just see them getting cut out in mid lane again. You know, the Destiny is coming out, but you really don't want to go on it quite yet.
X Frenzy, a bit short there on the TF ulti. Maybe didn't want to port himself to a position where he could get 1v3'd. So ultimately, no plays made off of that, and Bloody Valentine does not get punished going through the enemy jungle. See now map as members of Team Sator have gone for the resets. We can see there's priority being gained here in mid lane by Annihilation. Hung Fudge is basically just looking for any particular wards, seeing if he can kind of get vision cleared out for his team. He's going to go for a reset himself, perhaps. has kind of cancelled there. Cause maybe wondering who's going to show up here. Maybe it's going to try to surprise Mark Fell here. Does get spotted by the Wardo.
Yeah, we see the Drake obviously being the next objective on the map, as despite the speed at which Platodig's team does take Baron, even with the Viego and the Vayne, they still will look to be contesting these Drakes, as we are at least 15 minutes off from either team getting a Drake soul due to how late the objectives got taken by
Oh, and
either
Sator
team.
is going to be almost a bit late to this fight. There's 25 seconds to Dragon. He's just running down from top lane now. Team Sator have control here of the river. Ultimately, no punish there coming onto Bucko. Oh, flash taunts there onto the Alistair though, as he is going to get chased down. Annihilation kiting out here from Bloody Valentine. It's going to go down very quickly to Dismaying, and ultimately gets killed there by the Viego. Hung Fudge in the meantime has the Ergot ulti just ticking down and manages to get the pull. And huge picks coming in here from Team Platodig. Yeah, just Team Sator just were not in position to take that fight. Like, they just did not have their AD carry until too late in the game. TF in the meantime ports it to the back line, gets a gold card onto Sator, who's just trying to gale force out to safety. Ignites down. Flash Q there by Hung Fudge to secure the kill. And yeah, just some really nice series of plays and picks coming out here from Team Platodig.
Yeah, and in the end, I think we see Annihilation saving Bucko. I think he condemned him as Hank Fudge went on the disdain, which is the dash into Bucko, so he eventually got thrown away. But we see again when the Drake fight came up, Sator Lad's team just on not even on different pages, they're just reading different books. As My Bloody Valentine just tried to flash onto Annihilation, but he ended up just getting stuck in the middle of the river and being stunned and eventually killed down from it, as he didn't have his power ball or his, and he wasn't able to get the taunt off, and then eventually just going down one by one as there was no peel in the backside. Monarch Fowl got caught out as well, and just very messy. It's not even team fighting, as my Sator Lad's team is just getting picked out one by one, despite all being within a screen away from each other. And they're, instead of trying to all go in together and lock down one target, which really is their strength, they all seem to be going for different targets. So they still have the tools, they still have the taunts and the lockdown, but they are falling further and further behind as the game progresses, and it is now nearly 8k gold lead, just a little less actually, it's 7.
Yep, so definitely looking good for Team Platodig. They have Baron buff here in mid and bot lane now. Hung Fudge also starting to push it top lane, so definitely trying to get the most use out of this buff as much as possible. Makes a lot of sense. TP available here for Hung Fudge, ulti available for X Frenzy, so they can always collapse if anything happens to the 3-man core. So I'm liking the pressure that they're putting out currently. I did note that the Vayne has picked up herself a Hex Drinker, so definitely paying respect to the burst that can come out from Subsuki onto Diana if you were ever to get engaged upon. So it has delayed the Rage Blade just a bit, but I don't think it's going to be too worried. Otherwise, still has plenty of damage when given space. And they're just going to just slowly just take down, hoover up all this gold that's available in these outer towers. Hung Fudge has landed the ulti, is going to get the kill here on the Bucko and forcing the Rams to flee. Does end up going down though in the end. Big shutdown going to carry here on the Rams.
Yeah, once again we see them just on different pages, where Bucko engaged 5-10 seconds before Bloody Valentine was there. Meanwhile, I see my Subsuki get locked down in the bot lane. But again, my Bloody Valentine just doing red buff, as Hung Fudge was under the tier 2 turret in the top lane and doing the Krugs like right in front of Bucko and Valentine, and he's not so tanky that he can just afford to do that. He has the Ravenous Hydra and the Gore Drinker. Other than the Tabby, he just doesn't have the items for that. You know, they are sieging in, Platodig's team are sieging in the bot lane. We'll get the turret, but I don't think they can look for more right now. But yeah, I don't think
Bloody Valentine getting the tunt off and gets forces to TP out here from Hung Fudge, just trying to cover for his team so they don't get engaged upon on the retreat. but nothing much ends up happening off the back of that. But yeah, 2 inhibitors then now for Team Sator. Definitely having their hands full here. Inhibitor still available, so at least they're not having to deal with super minion pressure, as there is another Infernal Dragon coming up in the next minute. They'll definitely want to contest that, because you don't want to give this team even more pressure with, to get onto the soul point.
Yeah, we see Hung Fudge going in the top side, but he has no TP to match, so he is going to instant recall. But going up for that CS, he's actually going to walk down. He's given up a lot of tempo for his team, as he's in no position to join them, which I think he realizes. Without the Baron buffs, he can't afford to.
They may just give up this dragon, honestly. Although Kerry is looking for the engage here. Tried to flash over to get onto Annihilation, but just did not have the range. It's going to get shut down so quickly by the Vayne, who gets engaged on here by Diana. Barely survived, thanks to that Hex Drinker. Was so crucial to survive through the damage. It's just going to clean up this fight now, as Subsuki goes down in the end. Triple kill going over to the Vayne. Annihilation having a whale of a time in that fight.
Yeah, I think that'll be game going over to Platodig, but really, again, Bloody Valentine just tunneling so hard on Annihilation. And I don't know if he realizes he has the taunt, or if you think he can catch him with that far, but he's so much faster than the rest of his team, and he ends, despite being with them in the river, by the time he runs to them, he's just gone. Meanwhile, Bloody Valentine will go down again, and the game will go over to Platodig, but yeah, I feel like this game wasn't really Platodig's team outplaying Satorlad's team. In fact, I think Satorlad's team actually had a lot more coordination when they got all the picks they got in the mid lane. They sent 3-man mid lane 3 or 4 times, and they almost guaranteed kills on X Frenzy every time. Monarch Fell's Hex Flash over the walls into the Jin W, into the burst from Diana. But every team fight, they just seem to all be having different ideas as to what to do, and they were just all catching and going for different targets every time.
Yeah, for sure. But overall, like, big performance coming out from X Frenzy. Definitely had a lot of impact. You can see damage graph definitely doing very nicely for him. Meanwhile, Subsuki tried to put in a lot of work here on Diana. It was getting off a lot of chunk in those fights, as we were mentioning, but ultimately their team not on the same page, weren't able to coordinate the fights quite in their favor. So that is going to be 1-0 here to Team Platodig, and they're going to be sweating in their boots, as they'll have to work hard to not get tied up once again in this group stage. But we shall find out what happens, guys, shortly. We'll go to a quick break. Back to you soon. And welcome back, everybody, to Game 2 here between Team Sator and Team Platodig here in Rivalry Captain's Draft. As the looming threat of a 1-1 hangs above Group B, we go into Champ Select. Xenolot, what are your thoughts going into Game 2 here? Unfortunately, Xenolot does not appear to be with us quite currently, but hopefully should be back
My
soon.
apologies. I was muted. I did not realize I was
That's
giving
not what at all.
info. But as I said at the end of the last game, this was more Sator Lad's team not being on the same page and not working as a team. And yeah, they were just all trying to do different things. I think in particular, usually don't like calling out individual players, but Bloody Valentine really tunneling on to Annihilation's vein every team fight and just dying for it as he just got kited out, got CC'd, and didn't have the follow-up from the team as he was just outrunning his own team. But
yeah,
I think that the draft was there, but we see the bans coming through, and out of interest, the Udyr is through. And Bloody Valentine does play it.
Yeah, and we'll log it in first pick here on the blue side, so definitely picking up a strong jungler for themselves very early on. Also have noted that the Urgot has been banned away this time around, so they don't want to give Hong Fudge that option to kind of bully Bucko up here in the 1v1. See what else he'll end up going towards. So they are looking like they're going to threaten the Vayne pick here once again for Annihilation. They are going to secure that, which I think is I think it's always kind of scary when you have so little information to go off on the enemy team comp, but from what we've seen them in the past, they do tend to pick a lot of tanks. So I think Vayne overall is fine in this situation. Platodig here hovering his cheeky terrorist Shaco pick. Probably won't lock it in, is going to just get himself the Viego once again here in Game 2.
Yeah, the Vayne, as you said, pick dirty is really scary, but I mean, the Vayne in the last draft should have been really scary, as it should have just been bullied. The same as the TF was in the mid lane, where just a single overstep and you're instant collapsed upon. But he might just be picking it irregardless of Sator Lad's team and just assuming that Sator Lad's team cannot abuse the fact of his immobility and his ability to be locked down on that of the Vayne. Do you see the Samira getting picked up for Sator Lad?
Samira, very interesting pick, has been gutted quite a bit since we've kind of last seen her being played regularly, so has been paired up here with Xenolot, so it does have that kind of knock-up CC to kind of chain off of here in lane. We'll see if Sator and Monarch can actually make that work and maybe try to get themselves a bigger 2v2 lead going out of lane phase. In the meantime, they are hovering the Tark here for clean outs. They are going to secure that, so definitely a very safe 8 support. Obviously offers like really nice kind of disengage and peel for your team in any kind of team fights, especially with that Tark ulti that can just delay so much damage going down with your team. I think that makes a lot of sense when you're trying to like protect something like the Vayne against a dive.
Yeah, we see it's very good obviously for the counter engage, but again we see the fear of Annihilation. I'm assuming it is Annihilation, that Hong Fudge or X Frenzy isn't going crazy, but the counter engage from the Tarek ultimate is usually really good. But if he can get locked down irregardless of the Tarek ult, it's not a get out of jail free card where he could just do whatever he wants. So he could just get locked down and burst out nonetheless. We see this pretty much the same mid lane bans coming through this time, taking away the Diana from my Subsucky, as I don't think X Frenzy had a fun time. As if his ult was on cooldown, he was just dead, as Sator Lad and Monarch Fowl would roam up every time.
Yeah, but as you called out in the last Champ Select, the Rise was banned away, so they could pick the TF, and that has been left open here at the moment. Sator team does end up banning the Shen away, So they don't want to give Hung Fudge that option either. So 3 top laners banned against Hung Fudge. Doesn't have an awful lot left in his wheelhouse. It has things like we have, like you mentioned before, like the Yorick, and also has the Ornn. So definitely still has a couple different options to go with, but they are hovering the Mordekaiser here for
Yeah,
Bucko.
this could be an expectation of the Ornn coming out as, or even something like the Malphite. More tankier tops do a lot worse into Mordekaiser, as if he does get his pull off, he can eventually just beat them down. But then we see the Cassiopeia being hovered for my Subzuki. It does typically go really well into Rise, but we could just see the neutral scaling mid lane in that of the Corki Rise. So they are just looking to farm it up in the mid lane, as they are both typically the more scaling champs and a lot less impactful than the Diana and the Twisted Fate in the early game.
Yeah, and there's that York cover. Definitely wants to have the more aggressive option into to the Mordekaiser. Does not want to have to endure playing another tank and just being wailed upon by the big mace wielder himself. So we'll see how that top lane goes, because these are some very kind of volatile matchups being set up here. And just looking at the comps overall, very unusual from both sides. There's not really any kind of traditional front to back team fighting. Like, yeah, you kind of have a frontliner with the Nautilus, but because he's aboard, like, after he pops his W, he's not really all that tanky in the end. So, meanwhile, you kind of have Corki for the kind of mid long range with those ultis, and Samira wants to dive in super deep with the Udyr. So, definitely not standard team fighting compositions kind of coming out from either side here.
Yeah, other than the Nautilus though, Rise does have a good time here, as none of the none of the Sator lads team can really lock him down, and the main line, which is Sabir and Nautilus, Udi, or even Mordekaiser, all want to kind of charge in on him and get in range of his spells. So as long as X Frenzy does play it well, he should be able to get off good combos, get his Everfrost down.
Yep.
One thing is Annihilation's team does have quite a bit of scaling with the Viego, the Rise, and the Vayne, and then even the Taric to back it all up, as the more his teammates scale, the more Taric scales, as his ultimate will mean more in the late game, especially when just 2 or 3 seconds can make the difference in a team fight.
That's true. So kind of two very skirmish heavy team compositions coming out the gates here, although obviously scaling more on the side of Team Platodig here. We're going to go to short break, guys, and we'll be back to you soon. See you guys there. And welcome back, everybody, to Game 2 of Team Sator versus Team Platodig here. As we get into game, both teams rushing out the gate. There is a very strong level 1 here for Team Sator with this Nautilus. See if they end up opting into the invades. Meanwhile, members of Team Platodig still in the base here. Not going to be able to cover all their entrances.
See this? Annihilation does catch him out though.
Yeah, was sitting very far back there in the bush, so wasn't able to catch them going through this top river brush. So nothing's going to end up happening off the back of that. So yeah, just trying to look at these kind of isolated lane matchups, especially around mid lane, right? Like you kind of got the Corki and the Rise, both kind of traditionally scaling picks. But it feels like to me like the Corki might have the advantage here purely in like the early lane, right? Does have kind of more poke options. What's your thought on that?
So I know this matchup actually. Corki does eventually outscale Rise in the 1v1. When he gets to about when he gets to that 5 item mark, he does actually become stronger than the Rise. But once they hit the first second item point, Rise is stronger until they finally get to the super late game, which I don't think almost any match in throughout this tournament has gotten to the super late game, has gone past about the 35-minute mark.
Yeah.
But the poke, just other than the I think it's the phosphorus bomb, by that of the Corki is really the only poke he can land in lane. And if he missteps once, then he will get spell flux comboed by the Rise. But really, I think both laners just want to handshake it and just wait for the team fights. But we do see X-Frenzy actually getting level 2 first and getting the E-poke out onto the Corki. Meanwhile, we see a hook in the bot lane.
Yeah, and trades going up here in top lane. Hong Fudge putting a lot of hurt down here onto Bucko at the moment with the minions. Yeah, Bucko going quite low. Has to pay respect and back off here. Oh, gets tagged by the Yorick though. Ends up trading flashes. Barely escaping his life there.
Yeah, luckily, I actually didn't even realize Hong Fudge was walking onto the wrong side of the map. Or, sorry, Bucko was walking onto the wrong side of the map as he was getting chased down by the Yorick ghouls. But I think if you just autoed the Yorick ghouls there earlier, he takes a lot less damage and really comes out on top from that trade. But getting really lucky that the Yorick auto doesn't follow through like some empowered auto attacks do from some champions.
Yeah.
And as he would have died if that spade slap, or it's actually a guitar slap since he has the pentacle Yorick skin.
Well, again, trades going down here onto Bucko. He's going to get... He relatively okay, did have the shield there to kind of tank that those ghoul damages. I suppose that is the advantage here of this Yorick pick, right? Is that he's not a champion you come across too often, so not everybody would innately know that targeting ghouls early would definitely help in the trades, and especially the maiden later on once he does get his level 6. We'll see if Bucko can kind of navigate that when that comes up. Does have that shove into the top lane here. Is being hovered by Bloody Valentine. They aren't threatening the dive though. Don't think they want to risk it.
Yeah, Hong Fudge does have the TP advantage, as Bucko did immediately TP back to the lane after the short trade. But we actually see the Mordekaiser shield coming out pretty strong, as it stops the immediate damage from the ghouls and gives him time to auto attack them down if Hong Fudge does max range the toss onto him. So actually good interaction for that of Bucko, and the matchup is less punishing than I thought it would be. But we see a possible gank in the mid lane by Bloody Valentine, but he was spotted out by the ward. But X-Frenzy still being in a bad spot, but we'll get the phase rush out of the lane.
Yep.
And just walk it out.
Chunks Bloody Valentine nicely and just ends up walking away. Nothing, not gonna be too concerned there. Meanwhile, they're trying to get an engage here on the bot lane, but Annihilation didn't quite have the angle there on the Condemn, so wasn't able to get that chain CC with the Tark Sun.
Yeah, we see.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. We just see not a lot again happening on that of the junglers. They're kind of really leaving their lanes to their own devices. Meanwhile, Monarch Fowl.
Yeah, does have to flash away. It's getting chased down here by Annihilation, who's going to secure that with the Q. Very nicely done there. X Frenzy had TP down just a bit too late. Looks like they're trying to just get them to shove so that Nile can get the reset off. Doesn't have any mana to work with, and obviously would like to spend the gold he just got off the back that kill. Markel got maybe a little too disrespectful of the possible gank from the bush. Sator trying to freeze his way, but is going to just get forced underneath his turret though.
Oh, one interaction I did forget about is I don't think the Maiden of the Mist actually follows into the death round.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Pulled in by Mordekaiser, so I actually think this is an advantageous matchup for the Mordekaiser, as long as Bucko knows that, since the Maiden is left, since it isn't a part of the Yorick in any way, so it does get left out of the round. So it does become a 1v1 as well as the ghouls. So if Hongfudge gets caught out after having used the ghouls, and he obviously won't have the graves to summon more ghouls in the death round. So
True.
I do think this matchup is in favor of Mordekaiser.
Yeah, we'll see if that ends up happening. Meanwhile, Stun not going to land here on the Mark Fell, but ends up re-engaging to try give his team some space as they're kiting out exhaust used here onto Platodig. TP coming in.
Platodig is level 6.
Oh, the Tarek barely escaping with his life, barely dodged out that Corky bomb. And both teams just going to reset here. As it does give Team Sator here the advantage on the Dragon. They are going to start this up. Looks like Platodig's mostly just happy enough to just go back and just farm. They're going to concede this first Dragon. Not going to be too concerned with just the one Dragon going down. And yeah.
Yeah, but we see Hongfudge getting a lot of damage on this top turret as Bucko had to back off, and the Maiden has been up for a long time as Bucko hasn't tried to pretty much do any damage to it or get it off the map in any way. We see.
Yeah, oh, Subsuki maybe out of position here. Does have to flash away from the Viego. And it's going to be a little bit more vulnerable here in the mid lane. X-Frenzy looking to get the shove in himself. Already has a bit of gold in his pockets that he wants to spend. And yeah, so nice proactive plays still coming out here from Team Platodig in spite of them losing out in that trade in the bot lane earlier on. Even though no one went down, they did concede the objective. So yeah. Meanwhile, looking at top lane, as you said, Hongfudge continuing just to kind of just farm away here with the Maiden. Has stayed relatively healthy with it, so Bucko hasn't really been able to kind of get any chunk damage onto it.
Yeah, and just getting the Maiden down is important, as if Bucko ever leaves lane again, we see what happens to the turret, where just one slow push of just, I think it was only like a wave of creeps. You got the turret down to less than half HP, getting 2 plates off it. So Bucko has to be really careful about his wave management against Hongfudge. And we, as I said, in the straight fight, I think Bucko does win the 1v1 versus HUD.
They're going to find Bloody Valentine here on the Herald, but Corky does have the roam first, so they will have the numbers advantage. Although Bloody Valentine's gone down super quick here on the Udyr. Subsuki unable to help him, and they will now have number advantage themselves here.
We see the round warp.
Yeah, X-Frenzy was trying to be a bit cheeky, try to cut them off, and forcing them back into their own jungle. They should secure themselves a Herald here, and that's a nice pick there for Team Platodig.
You see Subsuki and Bucko not really wanting to give this up, but they can't afford to contest it, so they should just be going back to their lane. A little bit of time wasted there, especially after Bloody Valentine went down. But Bucko, as I said, he wasn't able to get down the Maiden of the Mist, so Hongfudge does just have permanent priority in that lane. He is able to roam first and get down to the Herald first, and in that case it really mattered, as the Corki package was actually really good from that of Sapsaki, but my Bloody Valentine just went down too quick, and Bucko wasn't able to be there in time.
Yeah, didn't necessarily have the full priority. Had it in mid lane, but didn't have it in top lane, so ended up getting shanked by the duo of Platodig and Hung Fudge, and ends up paying for that with his life. And a bit of a gold lead developing here, 1.5k for the side of Team Platodig. Going to be happy enough with how things are going so far. Haven't really seen anything too major happen in the 1v1 in top lane. It's mostly off the back of that kind of Herald play that there's been any advantage here for Hung Fudge. Also had some plates in his pockets too, so meanwhile is getting shrunk down a little bit by Bucko, but ultimately should be fine underneath the shirt.
Yeah,
X-Frenzy
we see what happens.
roaming up here.
Bucko does have the death roam, and Frenzy is very low at the moment, or Fudge is low at the moment, so he can't really help him. We just see the instant death roam.
Dodges out the claw from the Mordekaiser. Is just trading down here, forces the flash out from Bucko. Platodig in the meantime has jumped onto Sapsaki, but doesn't have any support in the 1v3 here. Uses the ulti to just escape.
Oh, that was a big one from my Sapsaki from the Corki aura. So but we see Monarch Foul.
Oh, just barely misses the hook to land the chain CC and set up the Corki to grab that kill. Bit unfortunate there for himself. They do manage to get themselves a couple of constellation plates in the meantime.
And no one is actually collapsing on Monarch Foul. He can actually just back, but I don't think he realizes that. And he will actually get out of here. He doesn't need to execute, but he will do so. Just he isn't sure where Clean has disappeared to. But
yeah,
does get out of there.
Not too sure what ends up happening there. Bucko taking a lot of damage here from Hung Fudge. The maiden continuing to kind of just wail on them. Meanwhile, Clean as Annihilation Next Frenzy just wailing away here on the dragon is going to be picked up there once again, 1 for 1 in terms of dragons between these two teams.
Yeah, the Monarch Foul going off the map just gave Platodig's team the freedom they needed. Despite Platodig almost going off the map as well because of my Sapsaki's damage on him, and they were able to pick up that Drake as they were just on the map back.
Meanwhile, X-Frenzy Platodig trying to get this shoved. You can hear Monarch Fowl looking for the engage though. Is going to get traded back upon, but not too heavily. So it looks like Platodig actually just going to back off for now. Although Herald was actually spawned, so a bit strangely, to be honest. They had felt like they had plenty of time to use it. So they will end up just getting some plate gold funneled into Viego rather than split between himself and the Rise. Oh, Bucko going super low here though. Just one tick of damage. Hung Fudge looking for the mist. Does manage to land it with the flash. Very well played to get the kill underneath the enemy turret, and he's going to end up probably securing the turret for himself with his main push.
Yeah, we see the 1v1 matchup is mattering a lot less if Bucko cannot take down the maiden, as he is just getting the gradual tick damage in the short trades. So Hung Fudge is winning out eventually.
Yeah, for sure.
And they did summon the Herald in mid. I think it was just because the place have just now fallen, but Platodig couldn't help X-Frenzy get the push off. But we see Hung Fudge roaming into the Bloody Valentine's jungle.
Yeah, I mean, there's very little Bloody Valentine can do. Does smite to secure that buff, I believe, so isn't going to be too upset by that. Hung Fudge is just going to walk away. Meanwhile, Engage is coming down here on both sides. Stun landed onto Sator, but TP is coming down from both sides. Corki has packaged in. Oh, Annihilation though is protected here by the Tark ulti. Is going to get the kill with the help of the tower shot. So Clean as meanwhile continuing the fight, locking down Sator Dada, and that's a big cleanup from Team Platodig. 3 kills for nothing.
Yeah, what looked like a good fight and a good TP for Sator Dad's team, but my Sapsaki just going in way too ham. Again, just tunneling Annihilation as if they feel they need to get the Vayne off the map and further behind, but X-Frenzy and the clean as Taric ult again just coming up big as they were just able to survive long enough, and Sator lad with the Inferno trigger on the Samira just literally did no damage as uh, the Cosmic Radiance was just stopped it all. They eventually did take him down, but again, just Satorlad's team tunneling so hard and trying to take down Annihilation and just forgetting pretty much everyone else on the map.
Yep, for sure. Subsoki definitely could use that quirky package, maybe just secure them kills onto the other carries or the other players in the lane. But Subsoki face checks into Hong Fudge does end up just Valkyrieing away. For sure, definitely seeing them getting punished for these kind of over aggressive dives that are coming out. Annihilation, big benefactor of that, does have that mythic item complete. It is going to be very strong here in the 2v2 into Satorlad.
Yeah, we see now the 605k goal lead at 16 minutes coming in for Platodig's team, and we've been a lot of focus on the top lane as Hong Fudge did get the first turret down and all the plates. But
Yep.
there are gradual gold increases coming out in every other lane. But Bloody Valentine,
Once again, Bloody Valentine forcing super hard onto Annihilation. They do manage to get the pickup this time, and the shutdown goes over to Sator. Meanwhile, Tark going down to Subsuki here. So nice pick off there actually by Team Sators in the end. Bucko getting chased down here by Yorick does have to flash out. And oh, X-Frenzy gets caught underneath his own turret. Nice responses here coming out from Team Sator. Still trying to make proactive plays. Still trying to get themselves a foothold into this game. Platodig caught in no man's land here. Does have Hong Fudge running over towards him. Manages to kill Bucko here in the 1v1. Dodging out some damage there with the ulti, but ultimately Hong Fudge not able to get into position in time to help him out. Does end up going for 1-for-1.
yeah, we see Bucko pulling Platodig into the death zone, but I think he actually didn't want to do that time as his team was around. They had the pick on X-Frenzy in the middle, or in the mid lane, but Platodig and Hong Fudge had just stayed around the blue side despite Satorlad's team just being all in the mid lane, bare Bucko. So they just got collapsed upon, and Hong Fudge kind of noped out of there pretty quickly, seeing
Meantime,
that
though,
Platodig.
they are getting themselves the dragon in response. So even though Platodig did go down in top lane, the enemy team did not reset in time to contest that. So 2 dragons now for Team Platodig, as they're getting themselves a bit of mid priority. And yeah, looks like Hong Fudge is going to just recall and get back onto the map. He has the Herald in his pockets too, so he has so much threat here on these side lanes if he ever gets a kill onto Bucko. Meanwhile, Annihilation 1v1ing here against Sator is out of position though. It's going to be now 1v3 and exhausted, so we'll go down here. Meanwhile, X-Frenzy also joined into the fight, has been Nautilus ulti. Platodig also joined into the fight here. Platodig having to flash out. Sator does get chunked out by the Rise though, goes down without getting Infernal Trigger off too harshly, and Platodig's trying to get the kill here onto Bloody Valentine. There's a really long fight continuing to happen as the chase continues here onto Subsuki. And Team Sator definitely in a bit of a rough position.
Is running into Hong Fudge, unfortunately, in the mid lane.
Kill does end up going over to Platodig, so 4 kills for nothing, and the Herald used here in mid lane with the Maiden. They're going to open up the inhibitor tower there, probably get themselves the inhib too, unless Team Sator can put up a fight. So they do manage to protect their inhibitor in the end.
Yeah, we just see fight after fight, and both teams just winning each one as the other team just doesn't have anything back up before the next fight happens. That's what we saw happen when they finally got Annihilation and Clean as by the Dragon Pit, as the Cosmic Radiance wasn't back up in what feels like an hour ago, but was actually only about 5 minutes ago. But then again, catching Annihilation by himself in the bot lane, but then overcommitting again. They're just tunneling really hard and trying to make these picks into full team picks and team fight picks. and they overcommitted to X Frenzy, and Platodig Clean As were eventually able to get back on the map, and then we're just able to run down all of Sator Lad's team, as once again they just try and tunnel on the carries on that of Platodig's team.
I'm still seeing Fate in the 1-on-1 coming through from Twitch chat, but honestly, it's looking pretty rough, lads. It's nearly 6k gold, nearly 7k gold lead here for Team Platodig. They have the Rides is already online, the Vayne is already online. Yorick is pretty much, really difficult to deal with for Team Sator here in the side lane. Like, you got Corky answering him now, but ultimately I don't think he really has the damage to really threaten the all in. So see if they can make something work. They are getting themselves in position here for Dragon. It is going to be 2 minutes away, so still some time away. So they're mostly just trying to secure some vision around their own jungle, so that maybe they don't get picked off in some of these kind of cross map plays that have been happening. Let's see now. They have a bit of time here to try grab at least their second items perhaps before the next big fight breaks out.
See a round warp in the bottom lane.
Oh, Boko caught out here by X Frenzy is just going to get absolutely minced here in the 1v1 though. Almost actually trades back against him, but Arise just too strong at the moment. Meanwhile, Platodig forcing out. Blade Valentine is going to get engaged on here. Tower Culty does come down, is going to protect them. They're going to continue to just mince through the team of Sator as another kill goes over to the Viego. Flash Bear Slap does come in onto Sator. Isn't able to get the Infernal Trigger. Meanwhile, Annihilation, Hong Fudge just getting the Baron by themselves with the Maiden.
Yeah, they just again 1-by-1 tunneling in the bot lane, and it was a 3v4 I think, but they all ended up going down 1-by-1, and we see the Cosmic Radiance coming out big as 1-by-1 Sator Lad's team is going in and just duffing the engage before it can really get going from that of Sator Lad's team. But again, the very aggressive Quirky package just putting him right in the middle of the enemy team, and not really playing off the use of cooldowns by the enemy team, and just coming in too late and everything's back up by the time he goes back in, so he just gets CC'd and taken down. But we saw Boko nearly 1v1 X Frenzy despite how far he is behind, and having actually no MR, he only has armor, as Annihilation's team picked up the third Drake.
Yep, they have got themselves here onto Soul Point. They do have the Baron puff here to start pressuring here onto the base of Team Sator, who are trying to just trade onto Hong Fudge, trying to kill his Maiden, but ultimately he's just standing there. He's just tanking up a bunch of damage with just these bruiser items.
Sator Lad nearly dying.
They do manage to eventually get down the Maiden, but at the cost of Bucko's life. Meanwhile, Cole just here in the backline, just 1v1ing the Nautilus, trying to get these chain CCs off. Has taken the form of the Nautilus to try and force the engages on here. Subsuki, that's not going to be long for this world underneath the tower. Shilbo not going to save him, and it looks like we are looking at the game end here for Team Platodig, as they have just snowballed through this game, fight after fight.
Yeah, and just such messy team fighting from Sator Lad's team. Again, I'd barely call it team fighting, as they just seem to go in 1-by-1 and just look for picks, as Bloody Valentine does go down again.
Yeah, and that is going to be the first 2-0 in Group B. The curse has been finally lifted by Team Platodig. And yeah, I mean, strong performance from them. I know we've been saying that, definitely haven't seen kind of ideal engages coming out from Team Sator. Definitely probably could have been more on the same page. But ultimately, I think we saw pretty strong performances from individual players here over on Team Platodig. They do get themselves the first win in this group stage, which means they almost more or less guarantee themselves getting out in the top 4 at this point, kind of given the state of the rest of those standings.
think there's 4 games left in this, in the 5 games left in the group.
Yep. So they
And
they've kind of got a lot of space to work with in terms of those standings. So the win very valuable here for them.
yeah, just skyrocketing them into first place
Yep.
by
So,
quite a bit.
but yeah, 2-0. Any MVP for that series, Xenolot?
Uh, it's really hard to tell, but I think it was probably actually Kleene's. Particularly in the second game, we saw, as I said, I think it was more so mistakes on the side of Sator Lad's team, but the Cosmic Radiance came out pretty big in the second game and was able to stuff a lot of engages and possible turnovers. I know Platodig did do well in both games, but I think it was more capitalizing on the mistakes of enemy of like the over engages, and and the fights went on so long that he eventually was just able to be there because the fights as we saw lasted 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas
I think you could also definitely give a shout out to Hung Fudge, right? Like he had 2 strong games in a row against Bucko on different matchups.
Yep.
Kind of just ruined him on the York as well, in game 2 in particular.
I don't think the Shen versus York or the Shen versus Urgot was as oppressive. I think Shen is meant to lose that to a degree, but he was able to keep relatively even. But I don't think he used the Stand United as well as he should in the first game.
Yeah.
So it's as I said, it's really hard to do MVP because again it's harsh, but I really think it was more of Sator Lad team's messy team fighting or lack thereof that Platodig's team was able to abuse throughout the series.
That's absolutely fair. All right, with that said, lads, thanks for joining us here on the cast. And as we witness the first 2-0 here in Group B, I'm going to switch us over to a quick raid to see who is online. Give us a second. There we go. I'm going to try over to a good friend of mine who's playing a bit of FTL at the moment. I'll talk to you guys next time. Take it easy.
Good luck.
Oh hey, thanks McGarry, I appreciate it. We're just doing our weekly FTL run.
Good.
It is a banger of a game, isn't it? But the whole conceit is that, embarrassingly enough, I played it for about 40 hours and I've never beaten it.
Okay, cool. Cheers, that dude.
Yeah, it was. I feel bad for what I said, but it was like I really think Sator Lad's team played so poorly.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. Like definitely
this isn't the worst
not
run, I have to say.
definitely not on the same page as they were in other series. So
like, dude, Bloody Valentine is Kerry, isn't it?
Yeah, Kerry had had stinker of a series for sure.
That was just like the fourth. He tried to flash stun Annihilation I think 6 or 7 times.